Now welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Bail Organa. We'll then see how he ranks or compares against all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you can already head down to nominate and or vote for which character we do next by responding to my pinned comment below with a name, or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winning character and the one we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for Bail Organa, where we'll see that 12% of voters gave him an A, 55% went with a B, 28% then thought this was a C tier character, which left 3% to give him a D, and then a final 2% to go with F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, Bail Organa ends up with an average score of 3.72, which puts him into 46th place overall and 100th of a point behind Cara Dune, and just ahead of characters like Savage Opress, Sabine Wren, and Wedge Antilles. And do note that these are now updated standings where Anakin and Vader have had their separate results removed and their combined score added up there at the top, which was how the vote in the comments of the combined video turned out. And I know some aren't happy or won't be happy with this, that they liked having the two separate ones or they wanted all three, but since I love democracy, the results of the poll will stand. Oh, and this also does have the updated Boba Fett score on it as well, which I don't think was accurate in the last couple of videos. Alright, and now let's move on to your comments, but not before once again just saying thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these or any of my videos on this channel or on my second one as well, where I do a lot more Star Wars content, a lot more casual, kind of fun content too. Also a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel and what I try to do here over on Patreon. I very much appreciate it. And now let's begin, as we always do, with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from Red5, who said, Bail Organa served his purpose and did everything he was supposed to do for the story. Does he have to have hours and hours of development to make him a good character? No. It baffles me every time I see a minor character given a B or C rating because, quote-unquote, they didn't do anything. Yeah, that's the point. Minor characters are extremely important, otherwise there's no difference between Luke Skywalker and Wilro Hood. It is crucial to take into account the role the character is supposed to play in the story when grading them. Okay, so first of all, well said, and I do absolutely agree that a minor character, or what we call a minor character, or a background or side character, whatever label you want to give them, they can have a major impact or part to play in the story, and Bail Organa clearly has a huge impact on the story, even if he doesn't have a ton of screen time whenever he shows up. He does show up in quite a few different places, actually, or quite a few different shows and movies, which we will talk about in a bit. And so then the question becomes about a character like this, about Bail Organa, are we judging him off the impact on the story, or are we, or should we judge him on how good of a character arc he does or maybe doesn't have throughout the story? Or should we judge how enjoyable he is in the story, or how well he plays the part, large or small, that he has to play? Or is there something else he should be judged on? Or should it be a combination of all these things and maybe some other things? And that really is one of the tough questions, isn't it? Just how should we be judging these characters? And as I always say, you're free to choose whatever criteria you feel is best or that you want to judge them on based on whatever you feel is right. Which, no, is not a perfect system at all. But even if I did say or lay out a list of criteria that I would like for you to try to follow as you're rating them, most people, when these polls pop up in their feed, they're going to give it a couple seconds of thought at most and then pick a grade, and then they're going to move on with their day. Which is fine. I'm not saying you have to ponder it for a few hours or agonize over it for days before you decide on a grade and then write up an 8-page essay backing up your decision. This is all in good fun at the end of the day, though I do absolutely try to take it seriously and I enjoy doing this, and I do appreciate the number of people who take the time to leave the comments, be they long or short, for each of the polls I do. Basically what I'm saying here in a long-winded roundabout way is that sure, I would love a better system, but I do think the one we have is pretty dang good and works about as well as you could expect out of a YouTube poll of all things. And the only thing I would like to change, or that I think would make it perhaps better or fix a lot of the problems to be honest, is adding an S tier so certain characters can't just get that extra vote or that extra high grade that they kind of deserve over every character who is good for one reason or another getting an A. But of course, YouTube only allows me to have 5 options, so my only choice would be to perhaps remove the D option, which doesn't see a lot of attention anyway. Not a lot of people vote D on these polls one way or another, or I'd have to move the polls elsewhere where I can have 6 or even more options. Then again, I'm probably going to get a lot less traffic doing that on another site or trying to direct people to another site to vote. It just doesn't work. People like the convenience and ease of just seeing it in their feed, and again, giving it a few seconds of thought, giving the grade, and then moving on with their day. But anyway, you're free to leave recommendations in the comments below, what you think about how we do the polls, or if we should add criteria, would that make it better or worse or whatever. But for now, let us move on and talk more about Bail Organa, starting with this comment from KS, who said, "A quiet yet strong presence in every scene, one of the founders of the rebellion, a faithful friend to Padme and the Jedi when it could have cost him his life. By all accounts, a kind and loving father to Leia too. I give him a B+ simply because he lacks screen time compared with other characters, but that does not diminish his status as a hero of the Republic and a good man." And I agree, as we were kind of talking about before, he is one of the most important characters in the history of Star Wars when you look at everything he has done and how he shapes or impacts the entire galaxy, even though we don't technically see a lot of the things he does a lot of the time, or much of his personal story arc for us to follow. I mean, we're talking about the guy who helps Yoda and Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the guy who is a founding member of the Rebel Alliance, the guy who, along with his wife, raises Leia. Take him out of the story and things don't go anywhere near as well for our heroes. Though, on the flip side, if not for him or for Leia following in his footsteps, Alderaan never gets destroyed. Though, some other planet probably does, but who knows, I suppose. Either way, I don't think many people necessarily realize it, but his story, his actions, everything he does has an extremely tragic ending or price to be paid for his whole planet and for him and his family. The decisions he made along the way that led Leia to that moment on the Death Star when the only leverage the Empire had against her was to destroy her home planet is all because of the choices he makes. He is a very, again, tragic character when you really stop and think about it. This then and a few other things get touched on in this comment from Hello There, who said, "It was definitely brave of him to take a young girl, Leia, that could potentially get him and his wife into trouble with the Empire, in which Alderaan did end up destroyed, but Bail and his wife were willing to sacrifice for the good of Leia and the rebellion. It's great that we'll be seeing more of him in the Kenobi series, and I'm all for seeing more of that father side of Bail in his relationship with Leia. Not to mention, we'll probably be getting a better glimpse of Leia's adoptive mother, since we've only seen her from a bit of a distance in Revenge of the Sith." And this comment is, of course, referring to the rumor or leak, and it is still just a rumor or leak, it hasn't been officially confirmed, that Bail Organa will be in the upcoming Kenobi series, and that apparently the reason why Kenobi will leave Tatooine is to rescue Leia from some sort of danger that she's in. Which, I'm not sure how I feel about that one, if we really need to have Kenobi saving Leia or not. But I guess it could, and I stress could because who knows how clever they are. But it could tie into why Obi-Wan doesn't seem to remember Leia in The Empire Strikes Back. Why he says of Luke that he is our last hope, as Luke's leaving Dagobah to save his friends. And it's Yoda who says, no, there is another. And that could be because Obi-Wan has indeed encountered Leia before, and not just talking about at her birth. Or he will in this series, and he doesn't sense that she is strong with the Force at all, which then maybe explains why Vader, when he was in the same room torturing her, or torturing Leia for who knows how long in A New Hope, that he didn't think she was strong with the Force either, only that her resistance to the Mind Probe is impressive for some other reason, perhaps. And yet Vader was able to sense at the end of that same film that Luke was strong with the Force while chasing him through the trench. And that's because Leia either, to use a video game term here, she either has a passive ability to mask her Force sensitivity from other Force users, it's just there and active all the time, that they can't sense her strength with it, or it doesn't, her Force ability doesn't fully manifest till later on in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke reaches out to her at the end of the movie, that somehow awakens her potential. but apparently Yoda knew or suspected it was there all along, hence he does say that there is another. Okay, let's now move on to this comment from Gonzalo Sanchez, who said, "I've always felt Bail as the anti-Palpatine. He is an example of what a politician should be, idealistic, honest, and a peacekeeper. When he's next to Palpatine, it accentuates how much of a corrupt villain he actually is, and for that, I will always love the character. I give him a B because he doesn't really have much screen time yet, and I hope that changes for good in Kenobi." There's also then this comment from Cornelius Evazan, who said, "Jimmy Smits acting in the finale of episode 2 is just gorgeous and gives him more than enough character for a background character." And I think that moment or scene you're talking about when you have Palpatine and a few other senators, including, of course, Bail Organa, looking on as the clone army is mobilized at the end of episode 2, is this subtle yet perfect and beautiful scene or moment that does show how these two guys are pretty much the exact opposite. You can just see or feel the pain and perhaps sadness and regret and fear of what's to come in Bail's face and in his mannerisms, that he can't believe it's come to this, that it's come to war and all the horror that is going to go with it. All the while you have Palpatine looking on stoically, and we of course know it's all part of his plan, that he's masterminded and engineered all of this. He's willing to plunge the entire galaxy into war to serve his own ends, to become Supreme Chancellor and then Emperor. All the while Bail would do anything to see a peaceful resolution, to save lives for the sake of the greater good. It's just this, again, beautiful contrast right there between these two different characters that caps off this film perfectly. Alright, and moving on now, we have this comment from Javier Ramirez, who said, "I liked seeing him in cameos in Rebels, The Force Unleashed, and Rogue One. Bail definitely felt like he belonged in the franchise, being a good father to Leia and being one of the founders of the Rebel Alliance. Very good character even if his appearances were brief, solid B." And I agree, I like that we have seen him and got more bits of his story elsewhere, like in Rebels or Rogue One or wherever it may be. And though I saw a lot of people bringing up that perhaps he's going to be in Kenobi and that could do a lot for his character, what I'm actually hoping for is that he's featured quite heavily in the upcoming Andor series, along with getting to see more of, say, Saw Gerrera, who is, you could say, also kind of an opposite to Bail Organa, but obviously in a completely different way than Palpatine is. That Saw is much more extreme in what he's willing to do in his fight against the Empire, and it'll be hopefully great to see Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and other rebellion leaders challenged in different ways, going against Saw's beliefs and his ways, or having to decide how far is too far sometimes in the fight against Palpatine, which means I also hope maybe we'll see a General Draven who was in Rogue One. I hope we see him in Andor as well. Basically, I'm just excited by the prospect of getting more Bail Organa played by Jimmy Smits, who I think does a fantastic job with the character, and be that either in Andor or the Kenobi series, in either one, I think we could see him having to face some challenges, some really difficult challenges, especially as he tries to do what he feels is right for the galaxy and the rebellion, but also having to be a protective father of Leia, someone who is potentially a last sort of hope for the Jedi Order as well. And setting the Kenobi series aside for a moment, and though I know the Andor series is not exactly at the top of everyone's anticipation list, and I think a lot of people tend to forget it's even coming, and apparently coming this August if the latest leaks or rumors are true. But if that show is done right, and that's always the key, if done right, but if it is, I think there's a ton of potential for the series overall to be something good, because with it being 12 episodes, we have more than enough time, or so I'd imagine, to explore beyond just Andor himself, and into other important characters of the time, like a Bail Organa. But anyway, now it's time for a few final comments before wrapping this video up, starting with this one from Ali Soapway, who said, "As someone else said, he is one of the characters I love for very little reason. I hope he is seen more in both Kenobi and Andor. Bail was willing to stand up for what he believed in and was someone crucial to making sure there was hope for the Jedi Order to come back, as well as hope for defeating the Empire. If Padme was the mother of the rebellion, Bail was the father. He took on a huge risk to raise Leia, but it wasn't just for business purposes. It was because he truly cared for and wanted her to have a happy home and loving family, as well as be safe from the Empire. And can we applaud both him and his wife for adopting someone who's not even related to them by blood or anything in general for whatever reason they decided they wanted to adopt. I love it when healthy adoption is shown. The Empire would have had a lot stronger chance at winning if it hadn't done anything. Then there's also this comment from Austin Richardson who said, Bail is a supporter of freedom and peace. Bail was a founding member of the Rebels. I think the Revenge of the Sith deleted scene is canon. Commits treason to help 2 Jedi Knights stay alive, and doesn't hesitate to take his closest friend's daughter as his own. And of course he supports the Rebels until he and his planet are blown up. B+ character. I feel he will be an A in the years to come. Really hope he shows up in Kenobi. Overall, a great character. Next up, this comment from Capybara, who said, Bail and Alderaan deserved more screen time given how important they are in the lore between 3 and 4. Then there's this one from Casual Arc Trooper, who said, a noble man who wanted nothing but peace in the galaxy, yet no matter how hard he tried, peace was never an option and he ultimately died at the hands of the Death Star. We also have this comment from Faceless Cleric, who said, he is underrated since he rarely gets any screen time, but he is also portrayed as willing to do the right thing, even if it puts himself in danger. Our next comment then comes to us from J Unknown, who said, after Wedge Antilles, one of my favorite characters that doesn't get a lot of screen time, but is vitally important to the story, an A for me. Then this one from Just Another Voice, who said, I love him, but I'm afraid I can't give him more than a B since he gets so little attention that we really don't know him that well, other than as the stoic politician determined to fight for the liberty of his people no matter the odds. And of course, great surrogate father. All good father figures get a point in my book. That's what earns him a B for me. Also here a comment from Lee Walker, who said, he was the best senator in the galaxy and a cunning warrior in the Clone Wars animated series, and he was a good friend to many of the main characters. Truly one of the people who made the biggest positive difference in the galaxy, with the least amount of screen time to be shown doing it. A for Bail. Our next comment then comes to us from Legends and Theories, who said, Bail is one of the most important characters in Star Wars who has little screen time. He raised Leia, helped form the rebellion, and was the only one in the rebellion that knew the truth about everything Palpatine did, and who him and Vader really was. If it was not for him, so many things would be different just for his impact on the saga. I give him a B. It is a low B, but I think that works. Moving on, our next comment comes to us from Snappy Volcano, who said, lore-wise, I would give him an A for the character. He does his job well as a noble senator in a corrupt galaxy, and as a leader. I would personally give him a B because I do not find many, if any, of the senators in Star Wars very interesting, in my opinion, but I can respect their place in the story. Then this one from Richard Tucker, who said, with more screen time, I think he could have been really something, and I'm glad the Clone Wars fleshed him out some, and it was great to see him in Rogue One, but I feel a bit underwhelmed by him. I would have voted C level, but the actor Jimmy Smits did a phenomenal job that it bumps him up to a B level character. I believe I heard he is returning in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm excited to see his story move forward from there. And finally here we have this comment from Janine Schultz, who said, Bail Organa was a normal man in the midst of the insanity with Force wielders. Despite that, he was a notable leader, peacekeeper, father, husband, and friend. He worked hard for what he believed in and raised a fantastic person in Leia. A. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of Bail Organa, or what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. You can also feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we do next. Either way, leave your comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.